Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, gamer boys and girls, welcome back to the pod. The nostalgia effect is a goal that many video games try to achieve today. A real sense of affection towards a past creation or trend that can be built upon as there's already a stable foundation. And this is what Null Pointer Games went by when creating Into the Pit, a first-person roguelite that draws from the gaming culture of the 90s and tries to recreate elements of these games by making it presentable for today's audience. So let's see what Into the Pit can offer, and well, let's jump right into it. Usually, when I start to play a roguelite, I have little expectations when it comes to the story. Most of the time it is just an excuse to give the action green light, and Into the Pit is sadly no exception to this. Nevertheless, this adventure catapults us into a distinctly fantastic world, within which we play the role of a mystic in search of his cousin who disappeared immediately after finding a demonic pit at the foot of a small village. And to be able to understand what happened to the girl, we must delve into the depths of the Dark Dimensional Rift. And well, yes, this is the summary of the plot. It is pretty straightforward, isn't it? However, this shouldn't mean that the game has to offer a small narrative. In fact, Into the Pit tries to fill up the gaps left behind a lacking main plotline, or at least tries patching it up. We generally find contextual snippets, one piece at a time, in the environment to be explored. These mainly come in the form of lost chapters of diaries and sometimes NPCs. This can work if the material is well written or if the NPCs are interesting, but sadly Into the Pit lost this battle pretty hard, offering too little narrative content, unable to create a strong and lasting attachment between the player and the world of the game. And sadly, this is present from the moment the game starts. This might sound harsh, but I am a sucker for a great narrative or personal stories. Here we get something like this. Oh no, I have lost my cousin and this hamlet is in trouble! Well, okay, let's just help them. There is no connection, no further incentive, and to be fair, I was pretty uninterested to go on. But as I have encountered games with no story but great gameplay in the past, I had every intention to give Into the Pit the benefit of the doubt and push on. So let's see how the game builds upon the classic roguelite foundation. The game advertises itself as a fast-paced retro FPS roguelite, and it features the classic roguelite structure with several procedural elements as well. Before going down into the pit, the player has the option to choose a realm to venture into and some permanent abilities. A normal game consists of 5 levels. To help you better understand the structure of the latter, each level is a square area surrounded by 4 walls. Each of the walls have 2 portals that lead to the rooms where the action will take place. The player is left to choose which portal to go through depending on the reward he wants to get. It is highlighted with a symbol above each arch, and until a room is chosen on each of the 4 walls, it will not be possible to proceed to the next level. The game ends when the player dies or when he manages to reach the 5th level and defeats the boss. Back in the village, we can improve and expand our roster of starting skills, thanks to the various vendors that are being unlocked as you save the villagers lost in the pit. And as per tradition, the cycle goes on until you finish the game or you are tired of playing. Whichever comes first. The peculiarity of Into the Pit is in fact that every run is different, but not only for its procedural nature, but also for the possibility of mixing the biomes and unlocking different combinations of environments and enemies to face. If the possibility of merging different characteristics is interesting in theory, sadly it becomes a little less so when you're actually in contact with the reality of the game. As interesting as intuition, it is undeniable that this choice was made to mask the lack of variety of the maps, which are repeated very often, even during the very first run. Although the design of the places and enemies changes, the rest remains almost unchanged. This leads, after a very few hours of play, to perfectly knowing the environments, patterns and positions of enemies and objects. Practically zeroing the learning curve and changing the entire process of descent into the pit into something extremely mechanical and calculated, at times devoid of a real challenge. Fortunately, when it comes to the pure and simple gameplay, Into the Pit seems to be more at home. The game, without a doubt, is a shooter. As soon the player goes down into the pit, he or she is given the opportunity to choose among the 3 options provided randomly, a type of spell for each hand and a defensive ability. Each time, therefore, the attack strategy will inevitably be a little different, since you have to adapt to the fighting style. Closer, distant or a mixture of both, depending on the spells available. From the moment you set foot in the first arena, the mind immediately returns to the splatter frenzy of early Doom Saga, mainly because of the graphic style. In fact, the gameplay is reminiscent of that ID Software titles, hyperkinetic and dedicated to the speed of the action. It feels like minutes to clear a room, when in reality only a handful of seconds have passed, which is commendable. And indeed, this time dilation pushes you to complete the arena as quickly as possible to improve your time. The frenzy of the game is always kept high by the speed of the interactions, almost completely nullifying downtime. The simplicity of the screens and the responsiveness of the controls allow you to move quickly from one arena to another, a key feature for a title with this pace. A few images are enough to notice the care reserved for the visual sector of Into the Pit. With a nostalgic eye, the game pays homage to video game history, but also manages to make it current, through well-designed lighting effects and a varied color palette used in a very original way. It is not of those universal styles able to please everyone, but surely a niche will appreciate the work behind the title. However, there is a but. Despite being graphically inspired, the game has flaws. These are mostly connected to various movement and object problems. It often happens that the character gets stuck in the walls, which in a game where movement is fundamental, is equivalent to a game over, and I have found that sometimes hitboxes don't register a hit as well. So in conclusion, Into the Pit is a title that fortunately doesn't lack ambition. The intent seems to be heavily paying homage to the greats, like Doom or Return to Castle Wolfenstein, while still creating something original by infusing it with the modern roguelite formula. And in part it succeeds in this endeavor. Ultimately the game is fun, thanks to the rapidity of interactions and clashes, which allow you to complete an entire dungeon in a matter of minutes. However, the poor cleanliness of the title and the substantial repetitiveness of the situation, which nullifies the importance of procedural and casual elements, leads to the question whether this unconditional love for the old is nothing more than a diversion to fill gaps, not only economic, but also practical. So, if you are into shooting monsters into the face in a fast-paced arena setting and you don't mind the lacking story, well, this game is for you. Thank you very much for watching. Give it a like if you enjoyed your time, and if you like this video at least 0.1%, you should definitely subscribe to us for more content like this. As always, the links to the game and the devs are in the description with our socials as well. And I'd like to thank for the Indiegame Collective for the opportunity to review this game. Until next time, Escape Pod out.